Welcome to Hidden History, Stories from the Secret City. I'm glad to be here. I'm sorry to tell you that my good buddy Keith McDaniel is not going to be with us today. He's had a little bit of a health problem, so we hope he's going to get better soon. But I've got Alan Carr here with me from Los Alamos National Laboratory. And Alan he's a historian there and has been with them for a good while. By the way, just finished a really good documentary, and we'll talk a little bit about that documentary on Oppenheimer. And he was also in Oak Ridge, 2 weeks ago now, Alan?
A couple of weeks ago, that's right.
Something like that. And we entertained him, took him out, and let him eat at Calhoun's. That was his request, by the way, that we get him to Calhoun's, and we did. And then we had him make a presentation for us at the Oak Ridge History Museum, a really good presentation. And by the way, Alan, I've recorded that. It's nothing professional now, just we recorded what you said. And that's available. I'll include a link when we post this. And also, Carolyn Krause, who writes for me for Historically Speaking, she has written an article about your talk, and it will be coming out in the Oak Ridger this next Friday, and I'll send you a link to it, okay? And then
excellent.
While he was here, we also did a panel out at the Oak Ridge National Laboratory, and Alan, that was recorded as well. And as soon as I get the link to that, I'll share that with you. It may have already been shared, I don't know, but I'll make sure you get it if you hadn't. And had tours of Y12, made a talk at Y12. We wore him out. I mean, we kept him busy for about 3 or 4 days. And he and Bree Steves was with him. I was glad to meet her. She's a neat young lady, and she's the one that had the lead role, I believe, in producing that documentary. You're doing the narration on for a big part of it, but I think she had a lot to do with producing it. I'm not kidding you. I really think y'all have done a very good job with that. So welcome to Hidden Histories. This is maybe the third time we've had you on here. And I need to tell you that, if I hadn't already, that you really have the highest number of views of anyone on our Hidden History series. So well, having you as is a good thing.
See, I've got more views because I think it is my third or fourth time, and we can add them together, and maybe that'll put me over the top. Right. It's great to be back, Ray.
Good. Well, it's good to have you here. Tell us, let's start out talking about your trip to Oak Ridge. Tell us what you thought. I've already said what I thought, so tell us what you thought about their time here with us.
Ray, I love visiting Tennessee, and I had not had the opportunity to visit since before COVID. It's hard to believe that several years have passed now, and so I was overdue for a visit. Of course, I grew up in Texas, and I've told you before, Tennesseans are always the first to jump in to help with a good cause. We know that part of that volunteer tradition has helped us out here in Texas. Just the people of Tennessee are so friendly. It's a beautiful state. Such important work goes on there, of course, at the laboratories, at Oak Ridge and at Y12. So many other great things are happening. It's a wonderful place, wonderful people, wonderful food, wonderful history. And Ray, I just really appreciated the invitation, and I hope we don't have to wait 4 or 5 more years before I'm able to get out there again. I'm already ready to go back.
Yeah, and I was glad to bring you here. I think it was time, but it also, because of the Oppenheimer movie, there was a significant, it's only mentioned twice, Oak Ridge only mentioned twice in the movie, but it has increased our tourism, and it increased the interest all across the board. The Oak Ridge National Laboratory wanted to have that panel discussion, and they wanted you in that panel discussion. primarily because of your connection to Oppenheimer and the history that you know about it. So, and again, you know that panel, there were about 150 people in the room, but they tell me that there were another 250 that were watching it online. So we had, about 400 people paying attention to us talk about the history of the Manhattan Project and focusing on Oppenheimer and the movie some. But there was a lot of good discussion there. David Keim was the person doing the leading of the panel, and he's good at that. He did a good job. Yeah.
Yes. Ray, I had a great time, at both Y12 at Oak Ridge National Laboratory in town. Me and Bry, Julie Mays was there with us from Los Alamos, our small contingent. We were just treated like royalty wherever we went, and I sure appreciate that. And the panel discussion was really a highlight, one of many highlights, I should say, but certainly a highlight to be there with you and to be there with Dick Groves, who's General Groves' son. And David did do a marvelous job as our moderator. It was a great audience. And I don't think I've ever had a Q&A session that long before. And I love Q&A, and I'm glad that David just let us run. I had a blast. And again, great audience there at Oak Ridge National Laboratory.
Yeah, it was. They've got some very knowledgeable and very interesting folks there doing things even today that are pushing the envelope of new science and new technology. So it's a great place to be. And think about your involvement at the Oak Ridge History Museum that evening. We had a good crowd. The room was pretty much full, and you were able to convey a good bit of information to them, and had a question and answer session there. So that was good as well. Sure was.
That was a special evening also, because of course, to be able to be there at that historical site with so many people that are interested in this history, that have played a part in adding to it since the Manhattan Project. And also, Ray, the last time that I was able to visit Tennessee, Ed Westcott was there. Yes. And I was able to give a talk in that same room and get my picture taken with Ed. And that was a career highlight. And of course, I remember, I'll never forget that night. And you and I think many, many others there, especially in Oak Ridge, remember Ed's great contributions. Absolutely. And so he's gone now, but certainly remains treasured in our hearts. And Ray, I had the opportunity to watch the documentary that you put together on Ed. And I hope that everybody who's interested in this history will take a look at that, because it was wonderfully put together. And just Ed, I guess, in our business, Ray, as historians, what we try to do is give an accurate impression of the past. Yeah. And, people like Ed, who took not just photographs, but wonderful, wonderful photographs. That does so much to make our jobs easier. And so grateful for him.
I am too. He was a good friend. But also, I tell people routinely, I could not tell the history of Oak Ridge if I didn't have Ed's black and white pictures, because there's no way you can describe using words only what you can show with a good picture, black and white or color, it doesn't matter. At that time, capturing what he was doing is something that could never be repeated. In other words, he was there at the time, and he, of course, you have to realize and give credit to General Groves. He recognized that he was doing something that was significantly historical, and he documented it, not just with Ed and his photographs, but he had people scheduled writing about it even as it was going on. So you have to give Groves credit for recognizing that he had something first of a kind, never been done before, and realizing that it needed to be documented. Historians like us have to be thankful for people like him that have the foresight actually help us as we go looking for, primary source material. A good photograph is the best you're going to get of some of the things that we've done.
Windows into the past. And you're right. A lot of we remember General Groves too, of course, and are grateful for our commander in the Manhattan Project.
Yeah, him and of course Colonel Nichols and Oppenheimer were the three that I think of as being the primary movers in it. But there were lots of other people involved. Again, the Oppenheimer movie shows that to a great extent. You and I understand, we know who those people are, but I wonder about people coming into it that don't have our knowledge about the Richard Feynmans, the other people that were there. Of course, they'll figure out pretty soon who Einstein is. That won't be hard. They'll get that, and then they'll probably figure out Edward Teller. But some of the others, you got to know what you're looking for if you're going to capture their involvement in that movie. But
agreed. It was that was one thing, Ray, is that I was impressed in that Christopher Nolan did take the time to introduce so many characters, and not just the famous characters, the household names like Oppenheimer, for instance, but so many other people as well. Of course, I think that he had to save some time also, and so I think Einstein plays more roles in the movie than he did in real life. But I think considering it was a movie, I think that it worked. And I had the same concern. I saw the movie with my wife and with my older son, and they know a little bit about this history. They're interested in other things primarily, but they do know some about this history. But I thought that some of these characters, I don't want to say they were esoteric, but I mean, they were more than you're going to get in a high school textbook, for instance. And both my wife and my son, JD, were able to keep up with what was going on. I was impressed. I was barely able to keep up, but they did a wonderful job. And I have to imagine a lot of people wondered why this guy just playing the bongos pops up a couple of times in the movie. Of course, you and I knew exactly that was just a tribute to Feynman.
Yes.
But I don't know how many other people picked up on that or not.
I think you're right, and I was proud to see that, because I could immediately make that connection, and I thought, hey, he understands, about that particular scientist, and that was a good thing, very good thing.
Yes.
And you mentioned about him giving Einstein more involvement than he actually had. I understand, as you say, it's a movie. It's not based totally on fact, but it is generated by the factual things that happen. And of course, I always make this comment. The thing that I least appreciate about the movie is the way that Colonel Nichols is portrayed. I would have done that differently, and I wouldn't have. He never had an office at Los Alamos, but I understand again. Christopher Nolan telling the story, and the conversation that he tells, I'm confident I can read it in Kai's book. It actually happened. It just happened in Chicago, not Los Alamos, I think. And I'm not even real sure about that. But I do know that Nichols was only in Los Alamos, according to his book, only there twice. He was there in March of 1943 and April of 1945. But again, you got to give Nolan some freedom come on, does he need to make another set just for one little sentence in Chicago? No, don't have to do.
No, there's so much more to it. And that's another thing that, when we make history, Ray, of course, we leave most of the story out because, whether it's a talk that maybe you or I or another historian's giving, or maybe we're writing something, we only have so many words, whether they're spoken, whether they're written. And so we have to pick and choose what we put in. And I would encourage, listeners out there, when they're listening to me give a talk or anyone else, you always want to be asking yourself that question. Well, what are they not telling me, and why? That's a fair question. We want people to be skeptical in our profession. That's something that we promote to get to those better narratives. But I have to agree with, in a movie, every movie needs a hero. Every movie needs a villain. And unfortunately, Colonel Nichols was really kind of given the heel treatment, and in actuality, Ray, I totally agree with you. Colonel Nichols was one of the great heroes, and I would say still, considering his high rank, a largely unsung hero of the Manhattan Project.
Right.
He was very highly educated. I believe that he had a PhD. He was an incredibly competent and versatile officer. He became a general after the war. Of course, he was with the Atomic Energy Commission, and I think that I think it's fair to say that he was on the wrong side of the Oppenheimer issue in 1954, but it's not in the way that it's portrayed in the film. The film it has it in black and white, and there's a lot of shades of gray in there too. But really, Colonel Nichols was an exceptional soldier, and it's too bad that you've heard me use the word before. It's too bad that he was portrayed as a weasel in the movie. I think that was a loss and a disappointment. But it's movie making, and that's going to happen sometime.
It is absolutely. So maybe we need to do, and I'm thinking right now that I'm talking to his niece, and I'm asking her if she would consider writing a series about him that I could publish in Historically Speaking. And
I think that'd be wonderful.
She's done an awful lot of research and has a lot of information about him, so I'll draw on her and see if we can get that done. Well, let's transition from Oppenheimer the movie to Oppenheimer the documentary. And I know you're narrating in that, so I'm putting you on the spot by asking you to talk about it some. But go ahead and tell us how it came to be and some of the highlights in that documentary.
I'll tell you, Ray, in a little while, if you want, I can tell you about some of the projects that we're working on now and that we have been working on. We've got a lot of things going on in our shop, and some of them are just starting to come to fruition. So back in the spring, the last thing I needed was another project. I stay busy, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I love staying busy, but also, in my family, we had some medical issues that actually, I'm now based in Texas. We had to get my son closer to medical care, and I'm so grateful to the laboratory for being so flexible and helpful to my family. It has been a wonderful place to work for 20 and a half years now, and I look forward to the next part of my career. Very grateful for that. But moving, selling a house, buying a house, trying to get my son healed up after 3 hospitalizations and 2 surgeries and infections. He's doing great now.
Good.
But there was a lot going on. And then my colleagues came up with the idea, hey, we should make a documentary on Oppenheimer. Yeah, and I got to say, Ray, I'm not sure who specifically came up with the idea, but I can tell you some of the most important people. You mentioned Bry Steeves. Bry is the director of the National Security Research Center at Los Alamos. We're the laboratory's largest information repository. There are others who we work with and who are, these other organizations are great. We have about 14, 15 million items in our collections, all types of formats, from videotapes. We have 20,000 reels of motion picture film, a million, maybe 1.5 million photographs, all kinds of things, and of course, paper records. And so Bry has a huge portfolio at the laboratory in trying to present the collection, advertise it to our staff, let them know that all this documentation is still available. And a lot of it is very relevant to current mission in one way or another, a discussion maybe for a different day. But anyway, Bry, as the director of the NSRC, was essentially, at least from my vantage point, kind of the producer of this, the person who pulled the people together necessary to get buy-in from management and to make it happen, and to make it happen quickly, because we did not have a whole lot of time to put it together. The filmmaker is Dave Tietmeyer, and so Dave works at the laboratory. The Los Alamos has had filmmakers going back almost all the way to the beginning of the laboratory, and the thing is, okay, so we want to make a documentary on Oppenheimer. Great. Why? There's already a lot of documentaries on Oppenheimer, and you've seen a lot of them, Ray. I mean, a lot of these are really polished. They've brought in some really, I mean, you see some of these documentaries, and they brought in some just incredible historians to interview. They've been made over the course of years. So what we wanted to do was make something that only Los Alamos could make. We didn't want to just copy the other ones, you know. We wanted to try and do something different. So differences that you'll see between the other documentaries and ours. For one, we focus more on his science than you're going to see. In fact, you know, in our 3-part series, it's called Science, Mission, I'm getting confused on our own documentary, but on the 3 parts, you know, Science, Mission, Legacy. But, you know, we wanted to not only just mention that he was a scientist and he published a paper on this and then jump right into other stuff. We have scientists from our laboratory, like my friend Anna Lobet and others, John Sorrell, who are talking about his sciences. So premier scientists talking about Oppenheimer science. So that's one thing. Another thing is that you're going to meet 2 Los Alamos directors in our documentary.
Right.
And so, because none of these other documentaries that I'm aware of have interviewed any of his successors. No. And so what is it like to sit in, as it were, Oppenheimer's chair today? You'll see today the current director, Tom Mason, one of our previous directors, Charlie McMillan, who's just fantastic. So you're going to get to see that perspective as well. And then another piece of it is that Oppenheimer's laboratory is still here. We have completely changed. We're not the laboratory of World War II, but we are still there. We have more employees than ever. There are 17,000 employees that are people that are affiliated with the lab formally in some way these days. We're on 40 square miles. And we do all kinds of science. It's a multidisciplinary institution. And we wanted to tie kind of that wartime story to what we do today. We wanted to make an inspirational piece about the importance of the modern laboratory, but how it started with Oppenheimer. And I guess the last point I'll make for now, Ray, we'll see if you have any follow-ups, but you know, with this was done, we wanted to make a documentary that was respectful, a respectful nod to our first director. A lot of the documentaries, and I think that this is fair, especially in Oppenheimer's case, in 1954 at the Oppenheimer clearance hearing, every aspect of his personal life was brought out and put on display, and ultimately the entire world saw that. You know, that's something that I hope never happens to any of us, but it did happen to Oppenheimer. And as a result, a lot of very personal things in his life became part of his story, and they just are. And that's why you see it in these other documentaries. With us, we kind of skipped over the dirty laundry. It is an admittedly and proudly sympathetic nod to our first director. You know, it doesn't cover all of those things. All those things are covered over and over and again elsewhere. But again, we really did want to focus on the man's science, mission, his legacy, what he means to our laboratory, but also what he means to our country and to world history as well.
And I think you did an excellent job in making that focus, and I believe a really good choice, because Oppenheimer was the first director of the laboratory, and as you say, that legacy is still there. There are people there today that still refer back to what was happening with Oppenheimer and what happened to start the laboratory. And of course, as a historian, you reach back for that a lot too. But the other thing that I think is so important is that it shows that the lab today is still relevant. It's still very much state of the art and beyond. I mean, your involvement with the space initiatives, involvement with many other things having to do with lots of aspects of what's going on today. And speaking of that, transition now into some of the other projects that you have that you want to talk about that are going on at the lab.
Oh yeah. So do you want to know about my projects or what the lab's doing or both?
Your projects. I don't know about the lab. That's a little beyond our scope right now.
Oh yeah, well that's true. I guess it's not hidden current events; it's hidden history, Ray. And so we'll stick with that.
Okay.
Yeah, it is for sure an exciting place today, but that's of course made possible by all of the things that have happened in the past, and so to bring a lot of those things to life. Of course, the Oppenheimer documentary is out. It's on YouTube. You can find it pretty easily, I believe, on the laboratory's YouTube channel. I have a link on my personal YouTube channel, which is historian Alan B. Carr. If viewers want to look that up, I've got 65 videos, I think, now posted from the laboratory's history. So that's kind of an ongoing project that I have. I just uploaded, thanks to our excellent film archivist at the laboratory. She's been working with nitrate films that we have not been able to scan. And of course, you can imagine, handling nitrate film within a government repository. She was able to scan those, and there is a 2-minute compilation of Operation Sandstone films from 1948 on my YouTube channel. I uploaded them just a few days ago. It's remarkable footage, I would say. And so again, that's kind of an ongoing project, and people can see a lot of documentaries and films and things like that there. We have a book that's going to be coming out. I'm not going to give the details out quite yet. It does pertain to the Manhattan Project era, and I'm not going to mention it because we're still working through the legalese business, but it's getting closer. Bry has been doing a fantastic job navigating that. It's been surprisingly complex and taking a long time. I know, having worked for the government before, you're shocked,
Yeah,
Ray,
right.
but we have a beautiful book that is going to be available very, very soon. And again,
a coffee table style book, lots of photographs.
There'll be lots of photographs and text in that book, and we might maybe I can get an invite back, Ray, to talk with you and Keith. Maybe we can have Bry on when we can make the official announcement, and I'm very excited about that. So that book does exist.
You said it, and I heard it. That's a commitment, and I would love to have on here with us. I would, and when you get ready to talk about that book, you tell me, and we'll bring both of you on here. Okay?
Let's do it, Ray. Let's do it, because I think your viewers on Hidden History are going to really like this product, and so it's at hand. It's coming up. Another thing that we're working on, of course, the documentary on Oppenheimer is done now. We're working on an even larger scale documentary on the history of full-scale nuclear testing and beyond, actually. And so for this project, we call it Clouds, Craters, and Codes. We are trying, so our main audience is the weapons program of the Department of Energy complex, but we want to make this suitable for public release, and I'm hoping that episodes will be able to be shareable with the public over the next few months. This is going to be a big project. We've already completed 50 interviews. I mentioned that Operation Sandstone film that I just posted. We have a huge film collection. I think 80% of the original films created during the era of atmospheric testing are owned by the National Security Research Center. And so we maintain them, we scan them. So there's going to be a lot of remarkable footage from the atmospheric days of testing. It'll go through underground testing. And the final episode will talk about what we do today, the Stockpile Stewardship Program, which is part of the entire complex. Right. How do you ensure that a nuclear weapons system is safe, reliable, and effective if ever called upon, hence the deterrent value, of course. Something had to be invented to do that, and that is the Stockpile Stewardship Program, and that will be part of our story as well. We have a coffee table book on the Trinity test that we're working on, and I'm hoping that will be in print in 2025 for the which anniversary is that? 1945 to 2025. That book, yes, we're hoping that it will be in print and available for the 80th. It's going to be a beautiful book, and the photographs have already been laid out. You will see photographs in that book, documents, frames from film. So you can't show a film in a book, but we have taken out key frames. There's also going to be probably between 20 and 30,000 words of text. So It's not going to just be pictures. It's going to tell a story. In there, we're going to talk about things like fallout from Trinity, because that's in the news. People want to know about it. We have a lot of the documentation for that at Los Alamos. So, we're not going to shy away from things like that because it's an important part of the story. We're going to talk about the atomic bombings as well as all part of that Trinity story, and people will get to read about it, but they're going to see it through, a kind of a combination of those famous photos that you want to see in a book like that, but also things that have not been seen before, or at least have only been seen very rarely. So I'm excited about that. And then I guess the last thing that I'm working on, at least right now, is, of course, Los Alamos has 2 full-time historians. The other is Dr. Nick Lewis, who I believe has appeared on the program here as well.
Yes, yeah. We had him on here, and he talked about the computers, the
Yes.
lakes that were computers.
I'll tell you, I'm often billed as the senior historian of Los Alamos, and that's because I've been there in the job longer. I bill Nick as the better historian, so I'm the senior historian. He's the better. He's phenomenal, and he's a great partner and a great friend as well. And together with a technical collaborator at the laboratory, we're putting together a book on the development of the hydrogen bomb. And we've made a lot of progress on this. I have just wrapped up a chapter on it. And in my chapter, at least, it's exciting for me because it's taken a lot longer than I was hoping for, but as it always does. But I tell the story of fusion in the 20s, in the 30s, and during World War II at Los Alamos. There was a much larger effort. Not to say that it was a huge effort or a main line of research, but a much larger effort that Oppenheimer nurtured during World War II. And so that's what I tell in this very, very lengthy opening chapter. And so I'm excited about that as well, Ray. So lots of stuff going on. And I hope to have, instead of just talking about it, hopefully we can show you some of these things before long.
I think that'll be good. I'll look forward to getting copies of those books, and of course we want to bring you on here again and focus on those kind of projects you've got going. I think that's exciting. There's a lot happening in the laboratory. Take just a moment and talk about some of the lab things that are going on now. I mean, you're the historian, but you also know some of the things that are happening now. History's being made, so to speak. So tell us a little about that.
For those who are, of course, the audience here is going to be very interested in the history, but probably interested, especially those in Oak Ridge, know that the complex is alive and well and doing important things. And Los Alamos is a piece of that. And so, since the 1970s, Los Alamos has been a multidisciplinary institution. Of course, we have the weapons program, our stockpile mission at the heart of what we do. And so the big pieces there are stockpile stewardship, ensuring that the weapons in stockpile are safe, reliable, and effective. And that's not something that's easy to do. I mean, the example that's often given, and people on the inside say, well, it's more complex than that, and it is. Just for a general audience, imagine putting something with a lot of moving parts that's very complex, maybe a high-end performance car in a garage, and just leaving it there for 30 or 40 years. Now, you didn't do anything to it. I mean, it's got a full tank of gas, right? After 40 years, it's going to go in there and turn the key over. It's not going to turn on.
No, the battery's dead.
the battery's dead. The oil's bad. The rust. The gas is now rusted out the tank. The tire. Nothing's going to work. So, and of course, a nuclear weapon is more complex by far. And so, these weapons that are now decades old, how do you make sure that they will work if you ever need to turn the key? And again, that's where the deterrent value comes from. How do you make sure, but you're not allowed to start it up, but you still have to have supreme competence? And so that's very, very basically kind of the challenge that's going on in the weapons program today. Of course, Los Alamos is the only pit production center in the United States. Work is going on at Savannah River to duplicate that mission as well, and so we work with Savannah River. But very, very important things going on there at the laboratory. Now, we also do a lot of, and have since at least the spring of 1944, a lot of threat analysis. You know, when we see these reports on the news about, you know, does this state or this group, are they trying to develop nuclear weapons or this or that? Well, who are the real experts that analyze that kind of thing? And some of them are at Los Alamos. And so that's a very important mission that we have. For those in the audience who might be thinking, maybe some of the younger people who are considering a career in STEM, maybe the weapons program is not for them. Well, Los Alamos, you can contribute to the work of the nation and the world in a whole other variety of fields as well. We do a lot of work in things like, as you mentioned earlier, Ray, space technologies. We're just coming up on the 60th anniversary of the Vela satellite launch. And so 1 year after the Cuban Missile Crisis, the United States, the Soviet Union, the UK signed the Partial Test Ban Agreement, which drove testing underground. Well, how do you enforce that? Well, we launched satellites that same month, October. This is the 60th anniversary month, as a matter of fact, in 1963. And I think that changed the course of the Cold War. So, you know, those satellites, we do that. We're exploring Mars right now. A lot of the data, for those who have seen from the Mars Curiosity rovers coming back, our folks designed some of the most important instruments and operate them on those missions and others as well. One other thing that I'll mention is, so I'm using my phone for audio because we had those technical difficulties earlier. I've got my laptop computer here. Yeah. We have a lot of technologies that produce heat. A lot of small things that produce a lot of heat. Why isn't this burning my hand and melting? The same with the computers, everything else. Well, all of these things, cars, you know, oil pipes, computers, whatever it may be, have heat pipes. Los Alamos invented the heat pipe in the mid-1960s to control heat in nuclear rocket engines. And the laboratory did successfully build 3 nuclear rocket engines to hopefully take astronauts to Mars in like 3 months instead of 9 to 12 months. The nation ran out of money for flight testing, but we did successfully complete the mission of building operable nuclear rocket engines, and the heat pipe came out of that. So we're not on Mars, but you do have this phone that won't melt in your hand. And so that's the most ubiquitous technology to come out of the laboratory. There's a lot of material science that goes on at the laboratory. There's green technology that goes on at the laboratories for those who are interested in that type of thing. So a lot of really neat things. I think that the laboratory is still hiring these days. If, again, for the younger viewers, we have approximately 2,000 students in the summer. Some of them are year-round. I have a student who's year-round right now, for instance. But, you know, if you have students, Ray, that you know of who are looking for something a little bit different, exciting, heading out west, you know, just like Oppenheimer in the day, following that trek, there's a lot of opportunities, especially for students at Los Alamos. So it really is a thriving, exciting place to be. And again, they've treated me great for over 20 years now, and I'm doing my best to try and repay the favor, because it really is a technically magical place, Ray, with an incredible history, as you know.
Absolutely, it is. And thank you for sharing what you've shared with us today. I think our viewers will be interested in knowing what's happening at the lab. I mean, we hear about the lab, but mostly what you connect the lab with is nuclear weapons. And that is a main part. I mean, same thing in Oak Ridge, Y-12, you connect it with nuclear weapons. But we also made the moon box for the Apollo program. You understand what I'm saying? It's more than just nuclear weapons. Not to lessen the importance of nuclear weapons, but to say that Oak Ridge, the laboratory, ORNL, and Y-12, doing much more than sometimes is known. And you held up the phone. That's exactly right. It can things that we take for granted, things that we use commonly, don't even realize it. The touch screen technology on your iPhone was invented in Oak Ridge. So it's
That's,
that
that's
kind of thing, that
yes,
never.
yes.
So thank you again for being here with us. I appreciate you so much. And I've got a commitment from you. Soon as the book is ready, you and Brian will be on here and we will make it happen. Okay.
Ray, I can't wait. You're such a great friend, Ray. I miss Keith today. My best to him as well.
Thank you.
And it's just always a pleasure to be there in Tennessee, to be here on Hidden History, and I'm already looking forward to next time.
Excellent. Well, let me tell you, viewers, that we do have another program lined up. Bob Davis will be the next person that we have as a special guest. He is a writer, a freelance writer, but he wrote an article, came to Oak Ridge, did a tour. I gave him a tour, and he wrote for the Wall Street Journal. So at that time, I asked him if he would agree to be on Hidden History, and he did. So we'll have Bob on here at our next program. Again, thank you all for listening, and my mouse is stuck, but now I got it free. And thanks for watching, and we'll see you